One time!
What's up guys, welcome back to episode 2 of the poker vlog. Today we play some 2-4 in another friendly home game. Remember to subscribe if you enjoyed. Let's get into it.
Welcome back everyone to the first hand of our session. We have a stack of 300 in front of us, and let's get into the hand. This one gets a little dicey. We're 5-handed, it starts off with a small blind and under the gun limping to us in the big blind. We have king 6 of hearts, not necessarily the greatest hand, but we're here to play pot, so I raise it up to $16. Usually I'd like to go roughly 5 times the big blind with a limper in this pot, however we're quite shallow stacked to begin with, so 16 it is. Only under the gun makes the call. Heads up to the flop, which comes ace king 5 2 hearts. It's a very action packed flop which definitely favours my opening range. I find it very useful to make a plan when you play poker, that's a small tip for you guys, but what I mean by this is, in this spot right now, I think in my head, okay, I'm going to check, and if under the gun bets anything smaller than 3/4 pot, I'm going to check raise. Given he limp called pre-flop, whilst I only raised, meaning I have much more combinations of hands holding an ace or a king. As well as this, if he does have a hand with an ace or a king in it, he's probably likely to call, which builds the pot for our flush draw, plus potential extra outs of a king or a 6. I do check, to which my opponent fires a bet of $15. I follow through on my plan, and check raise pot up to $50, to which he makes the call. The turn comes the queen of spades, an interesting card as it favours my range once again. For example, he can't really have many hands such as ace queen or queens in his range based on how he played it pre-flop, while I most certainly can. After check raising the flop, it's pretty unorthodox not to lead out, but I do check even though it's probably a mistake in this situation. Our opponent now bets $40, a tiny bet relative to the pot of 136. I contemplate check raising again as a semi-bluff. It will certainly look extremely strong, but I decide to call and realize my equity instead, as we block hearts, meaning it's less likely for him to be a flush draw, so he's most likely to have an ace pair or a 2 pair that will be pretty hard to fold out. On to a river, which comes the 5 of spades. Our flush draw misses, but it's actually a pretty decent card otherwise. There's only one combination of pocket 5s left, which is a hand he definitely could have had, and now any king pair chops with us as the kicker of the ace on the board will play. I check, there's no need to bluff with my king pair, there's a chance it could be good here, and our opponent now bets $80, around third pot. When someone bets this small in the river, it's almost never a bluff. However, to me this line just doesn't make any sense at all. An ace pair would almost certainly check back either the turn or the river for pot control. It's extremely ambitious to go for 3 streets of value with an ace pair, of which are likely accompanied by a bad kicker due to his pre-flop play. An ace just doesn't bet 3 streets here in my opinion, as it's just tough to get called by worse. If he is betting for value, the most likely hand is probably ace 5 or pocket 5s based on his pre-flop play and not being able to have aces, queens, or I think anyway. I can definitely see these holdings play this hand this way, I mean ace 5 and pocket 5s, however there's limited combinations of these hands. Maybe backdoor spades, or maybe jack 10, but these would probably just fold the flop, unless maybe he had the ace of spades as well. Holding hearts is actually really bad here to bluff catch, due to the likelihood of him having a busted flush draw being less. However, I really find the line he created confusing. I'm getting 4-1 odds on a call, so I throw in some calling chips for the hero call, and he mucks his hand instantly, so we take down a pot of almost $400. We had no idea what he had, but our session got off to a great start. As we pan over to him, you can see he's not too happy, but that's how it goes. Now this session was just crazy. As I'm sure you read in the title, we get aces. A lot. Let me just put this into perspective for you. The probability of getting pocket aces is 1 out of 221 chance per hand. In this session, we probably played around 100 hands or thereabouts, so considering I got aces 4 times, well, that's pretty crazy. The odds are insane, to be honest. Just now you've seen 2 of the times I picked up aces which didn't even get into the video, so yeah. In our next hand, we finally pick up a premium, pocket queens, which only gets better when the under the gun player opens to $15. We're 6-handed now, this is a clear 3-bet in the hijack, we 3-bet to 60. It folds around back to him, and he makes the call. The flop comes king deuce jack 2 clubs. Our opponent checks to us, and this is a board we should be c-betting a lot of the time. It fits our perceived range, although for our actual hand, having the king out there isn't really the best. Still, betting helps protect against smaller pairs or cards that miss the flop. However, this time I decide to take the low frequency option and check back. It's important to mix up your strategy, you can't just do one thing every single time, as opponents who are good will catch on. The turn comes the 8 of spades. If we were ahead before, we probably should be ahead now, so when he checks to us for the second time, it's time to get value. We bet $40 to keep most of his holdings in. But now something unexpected happens. He check raises to 120. This is another check raise that I just find really weird. This one isn't necessarily weak as the other one was, but I just don't know what he's representing. Maybe a flush draw? I feel as though our hand is under-repped enough that we can make the call, so that's what we do. The river comes the 8 of diamonds. This is a good card for us. It limits the possibility that he has pocket 8s, which is a hand combination which would actually make sense for him. It's unlikely he would check raise with ace 8, so I'm not too worried about that. However, he leads out for $140. Looking back, I probably should have just folded. What bluffs can he really have apart from a flush draw, of which we do unblock, to be fair. Yet, I'm a calling station, especially in this game, so I make the call and what do you know? He flips over the one remaining combination of pocket 8s for quads.
Show it to the big camera, show it to the camera.
And yeah, beaten by quads, not the worst way to go out. We lose a $600 pot. We add on for 150 and this next hand's a double board bomb pot. Everyone's committed $10 pre-flop and we get 2 runouts. The flop on board 1 comes 4, 5, 6 rainbow and the flop on board 2 comes queen, queen, 10 with 2 clubs. We have ace 8 of diamonds. We're on the button, which is an advantage, but we don't really hit this board at all, so our plan is to fold. However, when the big blind leads out for 40, everyone else folds, leaving just me and the small blind left to make our decisions. With 2 overs on one board and ace high, and not really anything on the other, but ace high, you may think we have nothing, but there's actually a good chance the big blind only has one board secured, with a straight on board 1, maybe 7-8, or even just a queen on board 2, meaning our ace high is good for one board. For that reason I decide to peel one, and the small blind does the same. 3 ways to a turn, which comes the 4 of hearts on board 1, and the 3 of clubs on board 2. We still have no pair, but there's still a possibility we're good on one board, so when the big blind leads for 65, I have the impression the small blind's weak, so I make the call, and we're right, the small blind does make the fold. The rivers come the ace of hearts on board 1, a great card, we're probably ahead there now, and the 7 of clubs on board 2. But the big blind checks, and we obviously just check back. He flashes a queen, meaning we take down board 1 whilst he takes board 2, and we split the pot. Turns out we were right all the way along, we were always winning the top board, and that's what calling a little stickier in bomb pots can lead to sometimes. Too many random hands out here, let's go back to what we know and love. Pocket aces in the hijack, I raised to 20 after the under the gun player limps. A standard raise sizing of 5x the big blind, with a limper in the pot, as people have rebought and reloaded chips, meaning we're a little more deep stacked at this stage. Both the button and under the gun player make the call. The flop comes 4, 10, 6 rainbow. Pretty safe for aces, so when under the gun checks to us, 3 ways this is a mandatory bet. I bet 25, I probably could have sized up a bit larger, but this is future me speaking, so 25 is what you get. Only the button makes the call. The turn comes the 6 of diamonds, a slightly worrying card because this button player is the crazy guy from last video who kept min raising, and a 6 is very much a card he'll have floated the flop with. It's not enough not to bet though, so I put in $40, to which our opponent does his classic, he raises it up to $80. At this point let's just call him Mr. Minraise, shall we? I know he'll really hate that nickname. Well, this bet is too small to fold. Yes, he could have a 6, but he also could have a lot of nothing, so we just make the call. Onto a river, which comes the king of clubs. Great card for us, there are no straight or flush possibilities, which is pretty rare in a board, although the 2 6s are pretty scary. We want him to continue bluffing if that's what he's doing, so I check with the intentions to evaluate the size of his river bet to see if I call, which I most likely will. Surprisingly, Mr. Minraise checks it back, so we show our aces and they're good. He doesn't say what he has, but as you'll hear, the table is not best pleased about me getting aces for probably the 3rd time in around 50 hands.
Again? What? 3 times?
I hope you're all ready because this is a big one. We're dealt pocket 9s in the cutoff and I open to $20 after an undergun limp. It folds around to the big blind who decides 20 isn't enough and he bumps it up to 40. I'm pretty worried at this point. This specific player never really 3-bets, even with real premiums such as aces or kings. I've seen him flat those many a time. He's very passive pre-flop. But 20 extra is just too small of a bet to fold. We'll have to be extra careful, especially if we have an overpair to the board. The flop comes a dream or a nightmare depending on how you view things. It comes deuce deuce 8 with 2 clubs. Both of us shouldn't really hit this board at all unless for maybe pocket 8s or the slight chance of ace 8 suited. The good news is we're in position. This pot would be much harder to play out of position, especially if there's a good chance our opponent could have an overpair to ours. The big blind now leads for 40. To me it just seems super strong and I'm really considering folding on the flop, to be honest with you. I was almost certain he had an overpair. The 3-bet pre-flop and this action on the flop just seemed way too strong to me, I know it sounds crazy, but I really wanted to fold. But we decide to peel one time, probably folding to a turn bet of decent sizing, no matter the card. What happens next is what you love to see. The 9 of clubs comes out, and I can't believe it. I approve to a full house. Action to 20 this is just the perfect situation to be in, because if he doesn't have an overpair like we're putting him on, the money's just going to go in all of the time. There's nothing really for him to be worried about, maybe clubs, but you know, that's not going to stop the money going in. The big blind leads once again for 50 this time, a tiny bet, but the last thing I want to do is scare him off, so I just make the call once again, which sets up a river shove as he has just a bit above half pot remaining. The river card comes the king of spades, and I know this may sound crazy, but I was seriously just hoping for no ace or king. If my read is right and he does have an overpair, probably a high one, kings are a very big possibility, which would mean he has a higher full house than me, and this would just become a massive cooler situation. Our opponent has bet 2 streets out of position. This does not change, he sticks in $150, leaving himself with 10 behind. Although there's a small possibility we're beat, we can't play scared, we go all in for effectively 10 more on his side. He obviously calls, we're expecting the overpair, but no. No, he has even better, he has ace jack of clubs to make the nut flush, and wow. The chips are pushed towards us, we cool our opponent massively. We hit the case turn card, the only card in the deck, which would give us the winner, and cause him to commit his whole stack. We bring down this pot of almost $600. Game 4, we get aces. For the 4th time today, let's keep in mind I've only got aces twice in a session, once in my life before, and this time I've got it 4 times. So we're back to 5-handed, we're in the cutoff for the 3rd interesting hand in a row, and I open the action to 20 after a limper, only the small blind makes the call. Heads up to a flop, which comes 6 queen 10 2 spades. Pretty safe once again, apart from queen 10, that's all I really have to be worried about. The small blind checks, and the board's connected enough that I have to be betting here with aces. Sometimes you can check back on a dry enough board, but not in this case. I bet 25, sizing up a little bit as I know this player is not folding here ever. He does make the call and we're off to a turn. The turn comes the 4 of clubs, a complete brick, 6-4 gets there, but queen 10 is still the only real hand I should be worried about. When I'm check 2 again, I definitely need to get some value, I bet $50. We're against Mr. Min raise again, but this time he raises it up to 130, maybe he's learning. The only hand he's representing is queen 10, of which there's 9 combinations. I know he can have a wide variety of hands. Looking back, I maybe should have jammed this spot as he could be drawing, but I'm not too sure if that would be a profitable decision. In the end I just make the call, which I'm not too sure is right or not. The river comes the 3 of hearts, completely safe, nothing gets there, but now the small blind bets $220. I'm never raising, but can I get away from this one? The line he's repping is extremely strong, the only hand I'm worried about right now in my head is queen 10, of which I've mentioned there's only 9 combinations left of. To any other player here I think I have to fold, I even say it out loud to the group, but just because I've called this player down light in many past hands, and he's had nothing so much at the time, I think I just have to call here based on the player I'm against. I also have the ace of spades, which is really bad to have if I'm calling, as it blocks the potential busted flush draws he could have, which I'd hope he was bluffing here. For that reason, I feel aces can definitely get away against another opponent, but not this one. I make the call, and our opponent quickly shows 5-7 of spades to make the straight, which I didn't even see or acknowledge was possible because it's so out there of a hand. But yeah, he hit his gut shot on the river. At least if spades came I could have gotten away from it, but no. The unlikely straight cracks our aces, and to be fair, it was about time we had our aces cracked, as we'd won 3 out of 3 previously with our aces. With that being said, we lose the biggest part of the night, almost $800, and yeah, not a good one from us there. On to the penultimate hand of the video, I pick up king 8 of diamonds under the gun. I've been raising a lot under the gun, so I decide to just limp. I don't recommend this usually under the gun, but in this game a lot of it goes on, so yeah, whatever. The cutoff immediately raises to 16, the big blind makes the call, and with our hand we can definitely see a flop too. The flop comes 10 jack 9 rainbow. It's very connected and fits the big blind and my range much more than the cutoff opener. When the big blind checks, I can definitely lead some of the time, but this time I make the check and the cutoff player bets for 20. The big blind folds and action's on to me. I can definitely check raise this board I think. We have an open ender, albeit the bad side of it. We block mid straights such as 8-7 or 8 queen. If we do hit a queen we'll have the stone cold nuts, and having a diamond on the board is important as it means we can hit a backdoor flush. Looking back, the best move is to probably check raise here, definitely. We can just have all the strong straights and 2-pair combinations much more of the time than our opponent, but we just call the bet this time. The turn comes the 4 of hearts, a complete break. We check once again and our opponent bets 40. The bet seems quite small, and to be honest it just seems really weak, so for the reasons I stated on the flop, this hand is a really good candidate to check raise as a bluff, or a semi-bluff. I can't just check raise my strong hands as otherwise my opponents will always fold to them, so I put in the check raise to 150, sizing up quite a bit because we probably want him to fold, no we definitely want him to fold, and the cutoff marks instantly, so it was probably bluffing too. We take this one down. On to the last hand of the video, this one gets spicy. We have 10-8 of clubs on the small blind, all 3 players other than the big blind limp to me. I want to play this pot heads up preferably, so I raise it up to 20. Well, you know when I said heads up? Yeah, I was joking. You can imagine how happy I was when the big blind, under the gun, and the button all throw in calling chips. Yeah, great day for me. The flop comes 9-10 deuce rainbow. For our perceived range, a terrible flop, but for our actual hand, it's actually really good. I can't risk this checking through, as we'll almost certainly be beat when the turn card comes out 4 ways, and we probably have the best hand right now. So I lead out for $45. I probably should have gone a bit larger 4 ways, but oh well. Luckily, my opponent sees some sense on this street, and only Mr. Min-raise calls under the gun. The turn comes the 4 of hearts, the board is super dry, and we still have top pair. Out of position, I think the best plan of action here is to check call, so we check and our opponent checks back. Off to a river which comes the 4 of clubs. Not the best card, as our opponent can definitely have a 4 due to him being crazy, but we definitely need to bet for value here. I bet 60. Well, no, this isn't enough for Mr. Min-raise. He hasn't done his speciality in a while, and he's probably getting some withdrawal symptoms, so he sticks in a bet of 135, not quite a min-raise but close enough. My odds are good, he can do this with a 4, or also nothing, so I make the call with a 10 pair, and we're good. He sheepishly shows jack high, so we win the final pot of the night. He said he put me on overcards, which at the time I didn't really think about, but looking back I do see how me raising into many limpers could have looked strong, and people wouldn't put me on a 10 or 9 in this situation.
Hope you enjoyed the video. I still cannot believe we got aces 4 times in less than 100 hands. That's pretty crazy. The odds must be crazy. Yeah, well today we were in for 450, out for 945, meaning we made a total profit of $495. Remember to subscribe if you enjoyed the video. It will really help the channel out, and yeah, peace.